You are listening to the Casting Shadows podcast. Casting Shadows podcast is an extension of the Runeslinger YouTube channel and, of course, the Casting Shadows blog on WordPress. These days, it's hard to tell where one stops and the other ends. Today's topic for episode 12 is on the idea of playing the game on more than one level. What do I mean by that? Well, stick around and listen. This episode is going to deal almost exclusively, maybe exclusively, with 2D20 from Modiphius. And the particular expression of that rule set will be Star Trek Adventures, because that's the 2D20 game I'm playing these days. Now, in Star Trek Adventures, there are several what we could call meta currencies, or there are several resources that both players and game masters can use during the course of play. Some of these, out there among other gamers, are ideas which get contested. Why would I need to use this currency to do something I would normally do? And that's really the heart of this particular episode. There are those among us who respond very strongly to the notion of a story being foisted upon them. We've talked about that in earlier episodes. Just as strongly, there are those among us who struggle against the notion of one player at the table having an asymmetric amount of authority over some or all aspects of play. You might hear this argument phrased as GM fiat. They resist the notion that only the game master can contribute in a meaningful sense to the improvisation or to the editing of the basic framework of a game. Well, Star Trek Adventures, through its use of momentum and threat, don't exactly solve that problem, but they do make that argument a part of play. I don't mean they make arguing a part of play. What I mean is that distinction of what you can and cannot do and when you can and cannot do it, the sort of thing that a game master is used to just doing when they feel like it, can now be a part of play. And play, if we remember, well, play is fun. So when we talk about, the game master is also a player, and that's something that's very near and dear to my heart. Being a game master is not a service industry. You're sitting down at the table to play the game just like everybody else, although with, depending on the game, a different set of constraints or a different set of goals or a different set of tools. Well, Star Trek Adventures gives these tools. It gives some tools to the player, and it gives some tools to the game master. And what these tools allow people to do is to bring the particular aspects of play into focus. We talk a lot about honoring what has come before, right? Being true to character, playing in character, consistency, right? Honoring the themes of the campaign, all of these things. These tools, momentum and threat, they do precisely that. As characters in Star Trek Adventures pursue their tasks, pursue their goals, try to achieve their missions, they are generating this resource called momentum. And that momentum is accessible first to them to enhance their own performance, or that's really the wrong way to say it. Not enhance their own performance, but to define what their performance actually is. The dice let us know if there has been success or failure. Momentum lets us know how successful, in what way successful. It lets the player, through the vehicle of their character, drive the success toward their interest, what they would do if they were there. Will they spend momentum to obtain more information on a sensor scan? Well, they are asking the questions. They're paying points of momentum to get extra details. They set the questions. The game master provides the answers. It's not roll the dice and listen to a long dialogue from the game master about what was discovered. No, this is guided. It's an investigation guided by the interests of the player. This means they might ask questions for which the game master is unprepared. Well, that's awesome, because now we're playing. Now the game master is in the territory of needing to improvise or needing to decide, well, there's really no information down that route. Keep your point of momentum or ask a different question, right? But regardless of the outcome, now we're playing, and we are truly honoring the activity of that character. What was that specific character's investigation in that moment, or the way they approached a particular task in that moment? It's fascinating. Threat works similarly. What are the actions of the players? How many risks are they taking? What type of risks are they taking? How does this shape the atmosphere of the session? How does it fold into the mood and the pace and the events, the actual events of the episode as it plays out? It's fascinating. If the players play cautiously, or if the players play boldly, the way the episode plays changes. The things that can actually happen change. The utter context of the episode can be different from one group to the next, depending on how the people actually play. So one of the reasons that spurred me to create this particular episode is that I'm thinking about running another campaign. I don't know how long it will go. It's an open-ended campaign, like the last one. But one thing I didn't do in the last one was to consider the impact of the episode-by-episode influence on the framework of the campaign. Now, it was designed from the beginning to have one episode flow into the next. On television, we would call this a season-long arc of stories, where little by little aspects of an overarching plot are revealed in each or in many episodes. Well, in a role-playing game, of course, last thing that people like me want to do is have that overarching plot. But we still want to honor the way that the characters are playing. And so I have decided that not just from the beginning of an episode to the end of an episode am I going to track things like momentum and threat. I'm going to set the stage for an amount of time within the campaign. And then, depending on the outcomes at the end of each episode, the different factions that are involved in our version of the Star Trek Adventures version of the original series where we are playing, each faction will receive, depending on how it played or how its plans were foiled or whatever, will receive momentum or threat to allow them to shape the through line of what's going on in the campaign backdrop, the part which is essentially static. To give that some context, in this campaign, First Response, we have a new division within Starfleet operating as an aid and relief effort. Older warships are being converted to crisis response ships, and they're being sent out to help planets in crisis or to help ships in peril and the like. Our crew is serving on one such ship, the USS Dauntless, converted to the USS Avicenna. Well, they're operating in a sector where they will regularly need to operate near the Romulan neutral zone, but also near a more nebulous demarcation line between the Federation and the Gorn hegemony. The Gorn and the Romulans are having their relationship heat up again. Meanwhile, the Federation still has some internal problems on the political level. And of course, the Federation as a whole is dealing with the Klingon problem and things like Orion pirates and ancient civilizations who still have far-reaching effects in the modern day, although their cultures seem to have vanished from the galaxy. All of these things will have the ability to earn threat, depending on how play at the end of an episode resolves. Now, I could just, of course, decide what will make for an interesting episode, which faction will be doing something now, what will make a fun crisis or emergency for the crew to go sink their teeth in and try to resolve with minimum of casualties and maximum rescuing of survivors. I could, of course, I've been doing that for decades. But this way, I can play at it. This way, I can honor the impact of everyone at the table and all the individual episodes as they move through the campaign and find exactly what I'm looking for. Surprise and engagement with the game on multiple levels. This podcast was recorded on January 4th of 2021. What's going on with Casting Shadows in terms of other games? Well, obviously, if you've listened to this episode, you know we're playing Star Trek Adventures. I'm playing that with some interesting people that I've wanted to play with for a while, and one of whom I wanted to play with again for a long time. So that's nice. We have a nice group of 4 playing in the original era. That's fun. You can see the recordings of the actual play as well as the usual commentary and reports and learning videos along with it on the channel in the Star Trek Adventures actual play playlist. The Mithras campaign that we are running, sort of a sword and sorcery campaign, has finally come to an end. That was a play-by-post campaign. I'm sorry to see it go, but it was fun while it lasted. We are about to launch into a Star Wars campaign, which could be quite lengthy, which will be exciting and fun. This time I will get to be a player, and those actual plays will also be shared online. You can see the first episode. Of course, I'm not appearing in that episode due to some family emergency. But you can see that on Ivan Mike 1968. The game was hosted by Ivan and run by the Umbermancer. Okay. What else is going on? What other games are afoot? The Blue Planet Curse seems to have struck again, although I am not giving up on it completely, but I will say that the time slot in which we are playing Star Wars is the time slot in which we were supposed to play Blue Planet. So things are what they are. So maybe at some point in the future, I will get a Blue Planet campaign going rather than just some odd sessions here and there. Also, we continue to play The Sky is No Limit, Leagues of Adventure campaign, which when we hit our last or our most recent episode, we've taken a break for the Christmas and New Year holidays. Well, it ended on quite a cliffhanger, and this is from a campaign that is rife with dramatic turns and cliffhangers. Suffice it to say, I'm really looking forward to getting back into the action there. We left things, let's say, in the teeth of peril. Next up on the docket for me as game master is Alien. I have owed at least a short-run series of Alien to the RPG Learning Group, but also personally to Ivan Mike of the Ivan Mike 1968 channel, because he has been kind enough to wait for me to run it for him before he runs it himself. And so I really must get that into action. We'll see exactly how that game delivers on its promise. That's about it. There's more going on, but that's enough for this episode. I hope that 2021 treats you well. Take care.